Welcome! I'm absolutely thrilled you're joining me for this explainer today. We are taking essential clinical first aid guidelines and translating them into actionable, life-saving knowledge that literally anyone can use. We're not just going to read facts off a page here, we're going to look closely at the real mechanics of keeping someone safe and alive in an emergency.
Okay, let's dive right into this. We'll start with everyday incidents like minor wounds and nosebleeds, move on to stopping severe bleeding, handling complex trauma, recognizing internal bleeding, and finally, building your very own bleeding control kit.
Section 1. The Everyday Incidents. Cuts, scrapes, and nosebleeds.
You know, it's super easy to just brush off everyday cuts, but doing the right thing early on prevents some major complications. So what's the actual right way to handle a minor cut? Well, first step is protection. Wash your hands or glove up, then apply gentle, direct pressure to stop the bleed. Next comes step 2, and this is where we really need to bust a massive first aid myth. You absolutely do not need harsh chemicals like hydrogen peroxide or iodine. As fun as it was to watch that stuff bubble up when we were kids, champion clean running water instead. Just rinse that wound for a full 5 minutes and tweezer out any debris you can see. Throw on a thin layer of antibiotic ointment, put on a clean dressing, and change it daily. Now, a really crucial detail here. If the wound is a puncture from something like a rusty nail or just a very dirty object, you have a 24-hour window to see a clinician. Do not wait on this. You might need antibiotics or a tetanus booster.
Now, even with top-notch initial care, minor wounds can still escalate. You've got to be on high alert during the 48-hour peak infection window. If you start seeing spreading redness, swelling, feel heat coming off it, or notice pus, red streaks, or a fever, you need to see a doctor immediately. Also, take a good look at the wound itself. Is it a gaping, deep cut? If the edges won't naturally stay closed on their own, you've got a 6 to 8 hour ideal window to get it professionally closed with stitches or glue. And remember, if a wound is on your face, hands, joints, or if it's an animal bite, have a super low threshold for seeking professional care. When in doubt, just get it checked out.
Let's look at another incredibly common issue, nosebleeds. I bet we've all been taught at some point to tilt our heads back, right? Well, actually, scratch that. Do not do this. Unless your goal is to deliberately choke and vomit on your own blood, tilting back is a terrible strategy. Instead, sit up and lean slightly forward. Pinch the soft part of the nose, not the hard bony bridge, the soft part, and hold continuous pressure for 10 to 15 minutes. And I mean continuous. No peeking after 2 minutes to see if it stopped. If the bleeding keeps going past 30 minutes, or if the person happens to be on blood thinners, that's your cue to seek professional medical care. All right, section 2, stopping severe bleeding. Press, hold, don't let go.
I want to introduce you to the stop the bleed mindset. Look at this number right here. Under 5. A person with a severed artery can completely bleed out in under 5 minutes. That is literally faster than the response time of almost any ambulance on Earth. In these scenarios, you are the help. Your immediate physical pressure isn't just a temporary hold until the pros arrive. It is the actual medical treatment keeping them alive.
So here is the severe bleeding protocol. Step 1, call 911 immediately or explicitly assign a specific person to do it. If you see bright red spurting blood, that means an artery is cut, and you must tell the 911 dispatcher that exact detail. Step 2, apply direct pressure right on the wound with both hands using your full body weight. Now, step 3 is the golden rule. If your cloth or dressing gets soaked through with blood, just add more layers right on top. Never ever remove the first dressing. Why? Because the body is desperately trying to build a blood clot at the base of that wound. If you pull the dressing off, you rip that clot right off with it, starting the whole bleeding process all over again. Just keep pressing until EMS literally taps you on the shoulder.
But, we've got to ask the hard question. What if direct pressure just isn't enough? What if you're pushing down with all your weight, but the blood simply won't stop? Or you're dealing with a catastrophic limb amputation? Well, that brings us to an absolute game changer in modern first aid, the tourniquet. For a long time, tourniquets had kind of a bad reputation, but they've been completely rehabilitated as an essential tool. A tourniquet is a tight band wrapped around a limb, utilizing a twisting rod called a windlass to literally crush the artery against the bone and stop blood flow. You use this for life-threatening limb bleeding when pressure fails, or say when you need to free up your hands to help other victims.
Here is exactly how you use it. Place the tourniquet 5 to 8 centimeters above the wound, so closer to the heart, but never directly over a joint like a knee or elbow. Pull that strap as tight as you possibly can, then twist the rod until the bleeding completely stops and secure it in the clip. Now, what's really interesting about this is step 2. It is going to hurt. Twisting that rod is incredibly painful for the patient, but you cannot let their pain stop you. That pain actually means the device is working and saving their life. Finally, use a marker to write the exact time you applied it and never loosen it. Only a surgeon or a medical pro in a hospital setting should ever take a tourniquet off.
Now, tourniquets are amazing, but they only work on arms and legs. What happens if there's severe bleeding in a junctional area, like the neck, the shoulder, or the groin? Obviously, you can't put a tourniquet around someone's neck. For these deep junctional wounds, you need hemostatic gauze. This is a specialized packing gauze treated with active clotting agents. You have to take this gauze and vigorously pack it deep directly into the wound cavity, completely filling up that space, and then apply incredibly hard pressure for over 3 minutes.
Moving right along, Section 3, Handling Complex Trauma, Embedded Objects and Amputations.
These scenarios look terrifying for sure, but they actually just require you to follow some simple, kind of counterintuitive rules. And the biggest rule is this number right here, 0. There should be exactly 0 attempts to remove an embedded object from a patient, whether it's a knife, a piece of glass, metal, whatever. If it's in, it stays in. The reason is really simple. That object might have sliced a major artery, but right now it is acting as a plug for the very hole it just created. If you pull it out, the victim could bleed to death in seconds. So instead, stabilize it exactly as you found it by wrapping bulky dressings 360 degrees around the base, and just control any bleeding at the edges.
Now, in the event of an amputation, your absolute mantra is person first, part second. You essentially have 2 patients here. First, treat the person. Stop the massive bleeding with pressure or a tourniquet, get 911 on the phone, and keep them warm to treat for shock. Only once their life is secured do you even worry about the amputated part. Wrap it in clean, slightly damp gauze and seal it inside a watertight plastic bag. Then, put that sealed bag into ice water. Critically, though, never put the severed part directly on ice. Direct contact with ice will freeze and instantly destroy the tissue, completely ruining any chance a surgeon has of reattaching it. Cool the part, warm the person.
Section 4. Recognizing internal bleeding. The invisible threat.
This is arguably the most dangerous type of trauma out there, simply because you can't see it and you can't press on it. You must suspect internal bleeding after any major kinetic force. Think a car crash, a high fall, or severe blow to the body. A person can look entirely intact on the outside without a single drop of visible blood and still have life-threatening injuries on the inside. So watch for a tender, swollen, or rigid abdomen, look out for vomiting or coughing up blood, and pay really close attention to signs of shock. If their skin gets cold and clammy, or if they suddenly become incredibly thirsty or confused, they are likely bleeding internally.
And here is the harsh reality, guys. There are 0 field fixes for internal bleeding. You can't pack it, you can't tourniquet it. This is purely a surgical issue where speed is the treatment. Your only actions are to call 911 immediately, lay the patient flat to keep them warm with a blanket, and give them absolutely nothing to eat or drink, even if they are begging you for water. Just monitor their breathing and wait for the ambulance.
All right, let's wrap up with Section 5, Empowerment and Preparedness, your bleeding control kit. We've covered some pretty intense medical protocols today, but knowledge is really only half the battle. You need to physically prepare with a dedicated bleeding control kit. Inside, you should have several pairs of nitrile gloves because your safety always comes first. You need a verified commercial tourniquet like a CAT or a soft T model. And hey, make sure you take it out of the plastic and actually practice twisting the windlass at home so the mechanics aren't a surprise during a real emergency. Pack hemostatic gauze for packing deep wounds, standard pressure bandages, trauma shears to cut away bloody clothing, and a permanent marker to write down the time you applied the tourniquet. Keep one kit in your house and one in your car, and try to check their stock twice a year.
This brilliantly illustrates our core takeaways by contrasting the right, evidence-based actions with those outdated first aid myths. Do press hard. Do add layers to soaked bandages. Do use tourniquets for severe limb bleeds. Do irrigate minor wounds with clean running water. Conversely, avoid the classic mistakes. Never peek under a dressing. Never pull out an embedded object. Stop using peroxide in open wound beds, and please never use fluffy cotton wool on an open cut unless you want those fibers permanently woven into your healing tissue.
So if you only remember 3 things from this entire explainer, please make it these. First, pressure is everything. Direct, hard, continuous pressure stops the vast majority of bleeding. Second, tourniquets save limbs and lives. Place them 5 to 8 centimeters above a life-threatening limb bleed, twist until it stops, and note the time. Third, clean water beats harsh antiseptics. Keep the peroxide in the cabinet, flush everyday wounds with clean running water.
Well, we've reached the end of our explainer. Know the science, the mechanics, and the protocols.
So I want to leave you with this final thought. If a severe bleed happens right in front of you, right now, today, are you ready to step up and act? Go build your kit. Review these takeaways. Because when the clock is ticking, you just might be the absolute most important person in the room.